Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Ik oankar Satnam Karta Purkh Nirbhau Nirvair Akal Murti Ajuni Saipam Gur Prasad Jap Adi Sach Jugad Sach Hai Bhi Sach Nanak Hosi Bhi Sach Waheguru 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 चरण सरन गुर एक पैंडा जाए चल सतगुर कोट पैंडा आगे होए लेता है वाहेगुरु जी का खालसा वाहेगुरु जी की फतेह. So today's topic that I've chosen to speak on under the umbrella of Simran, which we were given by the Sevadars, is called Simrao. It's called the Pathway to Peace. And we were asked as Sevadars to choose a Shabad that meant something to us to kind of demonstrate Simran. So I have a few questions for you, and I think because we have got the time, we can make it a little bit interactive if you'd like to. First question is, what is Simran? Very simple question. Shout it out, anything. Japping Waheguru, yeah? Second, why do we do Simran? Any ideas?
To meditate on Waheguru.
Say that again. To meditate on Waheguru? Yeah. How can we do Simran? Various ways?
There's different ways, yeah.
Hanji.
Or practicing at home.
Yeah, practicing at home. And this one you might not personally want to answer because a Gursik kind of shies away from anything that they're blessed to do spiritually. But I put it here on purpose. Who here practices Simran consistently? And the reason I've put that in intentionally is because I want us to think that, one, are we doing it? So that we can measure our journey maybe next year and say, gosh, that's changed for us. And two, like one day, if we ever meet a Mahapurkhs, a Gursik, and eventually, hopefully, even if it takes lifetimes, we meet our Guru Sahib, Waheguru, and they might ask us, Putri, Putra, Tasi, Simran Kita. They know everything, but they want to see it and hear it. At least we've got that turned inside of us that we can say we tried our best. It's just something there as a motivator, our internal checklist. Are we doing, are we not doing, can we try? So the Shabad that I wanted to explore in this session comes from Sukhmani Sahib Ji, the part. It starts off, Ashtapadi, Simrao, Simr, Simr, Sukh Pavo, Kal Kales Tan Mahi Mitavo, Simrao Jasp Sampar Eka, Naam Japat Aganat Aneka, Ved Puran Simrat Sadakhir, Ki Ram Naam Ek Akhir, Tinka Ek Jis Ji Basawa, Taki Mahma Gani Na Ava, Kaki Ek Daras Tuharo, Nanak On Sang Mohe Udaharo. So you might have all heard that because you might be invited to Sukhmani Sahib parts, you might do it yourself. But I wanted to explore that in greater detail. So as I mentioned, it's from Sri Sukhmani Sahib Ji, the part by Guru Arjan Dev Ji, our fifth Guru Sahib. And at that time, Guru Sahib used to reside in Amritsar area. And in this particular time, they were at Gurudwara Ramsar Sahib. So there came a time when Guruji exhorts us to do 24 hours Simran. Again and again and again, they might use art pahar, doing Simran all the time, night and day, throughout the day, 24 hours, saas glass with each breath. And Sangata had a benti for Maharaj, but rather than going straight to Guru Sahib, they would always have some certain go-to Gursiks, knowledgeable Gursiks who could explain the how, why, what does Guruji mean? They could go to them and turn to them. And these particular Gursiks were saints like Bhai Buddha Ji, Bhai Gurdas Ji. They also obviously wrote a lot about Guru Sahibs and represented Guru Sikhi in the most beautiful, beautiful way. So Sangata would turn to these knowledgeable Guru Sikhs and they said, you know, Guruji always talks about we should be doing meditation all the time, 24 hours. Well, we live in the age of Kaljug, where it's really hard. You know, people don't pay attention to Dharma as it is. There's so many distractions, negativities. You know, we have to go to work. How can we do Naam Simran 24 hours a day? How can we meditate 24 hours a day? So please, can Guru Sahib give us a Bani where we'll get the fal, the reward of meditating 24 hours a day. And at that time, Baba Buddha Ji and Bhai Gurdas Ji, they did Beinti to Guru Sahib on behalf of the Sangat. And they said, and then Maharaj said, that whoever does this Pata Amrit Vela will get the fal, the reward of the sins of lifetimes being washed away. So that doesn't limit Sukhmani Sahib Ji the part. That's just something that's recorded as Guruji said this. But Sukhmani Sahib part can be done at any time, absolutely any time. And it will give you the fal of what is literal meaning is of Sukhmani, man nu sukh den wali bani. So it will give your mind comfort, reassurance, happiness, and it can be done at any time. So it starts off Ashtapadi, Simrao, Simr, Simr Sukh Pao. So Maharaj says, in the literal translation that you'll find on Sikhi to the Max, meditate, meditate, meditate in remembrance of Waheguru and find peace. Okay? And this is, like I said, it's quite similar to Gyani Sukraj Singh Ji's Kafha yesterday evening, because it was very similar Pangati that came up. So the first, meditate, Simro, meditate within your heart. Second, meditate, Simr, with your speech, bolke. Third, meditate with your body. Now, how do we meditate with our body? In brackets, we've put in seva. Yes, you can do that as a form of meditation. But I'll also explore this further on in the session using some neuroscience to collect our body with Simran. And if you do all those three things, what do you get? Atmik Sukh, Atmik Shanti, which means spiritual bliss, spiritual happiness. Okay? So one thing Gyani Sukraj Singh Ji mentioned in a camp many years ago, he shared with us how we can practically do Simran, shared some tips. And you can do it any which way you want. So if you're already doing it in a way that works for you, stick to that way. This is just an option that we've put in here. So he didn't mention the first point. I've added that in myself. That first point is some might do ardas first for blessings of concentration. And I've had some Mahapurkhs say this. I've had different Gursikhs say this. I've tried this myself. If I find like, oh, I just need that kind of kick up the right direction, I find that when I'm in that mode where my mind, I'm battling with it, then ardas might come in really handy for asking Maharaj to bless us with concentration. Gyani Sukraj Singh Ji says, the key is to focus within. So you're going to turn inwards in this. You're going to have the mindset that there is only one Waheguru. There's only one Waheguru, and your complete love and your complete shraddha, which means your faith, is in that one Waheguru. When thoughts come into our minds, let them come in. Don't ponder or get stuck, and release them. So you're going to be an observer. So thoughts are going to come in initially. Don't start shaming yourself. Don't fall into patterns of guilt. Don't start beating yourself up. Oh my God, I should be concentrating. Why is this? And this is not working. Just release them. You're an observer, release them, and your concentration and your love is with Waheguru. During the day, avoid immoral activity. You're all Siane, you know what that means. You know, avoid doing things that are immoral. Don't get angry if you feel you haven't made any progress. It takes a while. It takes a long time. I'm still not there. And I don't have the ask either that I'll be there in this lifetime. I just think, go with the flow. Don't get angry if you feel you haven't made any progress. And I think one thing I'd like to add in this session, because another Bibi just mentioned it to me, she said, don't look too externally as well. There'll be a lot of groups of people that will say, come and do it this way, come and do it this way, you're doing it wrong, do this, try this. Believe me, I've been on that side and realized that actually a lot of it is the work internally. So, yeah, don't get angry, have the patience, and there'll be times where the Simran clicks, like Genji said yesterday, it just clicks, and you feel so united and one with God, you feel bliss. There'll be times where you feel like you're just doing the repetition but not getting anywhere, and it will be so random that it doesn't make any sense. And often what happens is, as well, when you walk on the path and when you start the path of spirituality and reading Bani or especially meditating, is you'll find that things that never used to bother you, like you never used to think about, negative thoughts, they start coming up to the surface. And it's a bit like, in India we used to boil milk before we used to actually drink it. It's also like, when you've got really dirty dish and it's full of like jamia hoya sabji or something on it, and it's really like stuck on grease, what you'll do first is like fill it up with hot water and put fairy liquid or something in it, and slowly that kind of mel or that residue that was stuck onto the surfaces, it will start releasing and come to the top. So it's similar to that. What may happen for many people is that at first you're just drowned by this kind of like negative kind of chatter in your mind, and that's just the gandagi of our previous lifetimes, of now, of society that we're in. That's coming to the surface so that Maharaj can dissipate it all. Okay? And lastly, have that objective in your mind. Have the thought that, Vaheguru Ji, I want to be one with you. That's your objective. Okay? Next slide. You've probably done Bibi Sarveen Kaur's talk already, where she talked about Gurmantar and Mool Mantar. So you're aware that Guru Nanak Dev Ji did countless penance on the name of Vaheguru to bring it to us, to make our lives easier in Kaljug. So this is another explanation of the name Vaheguru. So Va comes from Vasudev, which was the name in Satjug that everyone used to meditate on God. And that can translate as the divine Dev who resides, Vaska, there in everywhere and in all people. He Har, which was the name in Treta, Harya Karamala. So it's somebody literally who blossoms forth within us and takes away Har, all our sin. Gu, Gobind, that's the protector of creation, and Ru is Ram, the Anand Swarup that gives you bliss. They are just one earth, meaning of each to help with the focus of reciting. So bear in mind, this is just one option for you guys. There's lots and lots more out there. So to summarize the last two slides, Vaheguru exists everywhere. They blossom forth within by taking away all our sin. They forever protect us and bless us with eternal bliss. Okay? So again, this is what Genji touched on last night. Kal kales tan mahe mitavo. So the literal translation is, worry and anguish shall be dispelled from your body. So again, the 5 types of kales that Genji talked about in more depth yesterday. The first one is rag, and that is your attachment to materialistic possessions. Second one is dvesh, attachment to vair, virod, enmity, disputes, tu, mama, just getting involved in that. 3, avidya, ignorance. So in, I think it's Mahan Ghosh, Genji talks about asliyat na samjhni. So that core message, you're not understanding that core message, what's the crux of it all. Or ulti samajh, not grasping it at all and getting the wrong end of the stick. 4, asamta equals I, me, ma, homa, that ego in your body, wealth, acquaintances or family. And the last one is abhinavesh. So those things you are not supposed to do, you become stubborn and do those things anyway. And we all kind of fall into these modes at different times. Maybe not all of us, but I certainly do. So abhinavesh also, like Genji mentioned, is being scared of death. Now when he talked about it, he talked about the kind of be-all and end-all, like the avastha that Shaheeds are in, Shaheed Singh, Singhania. They have embraced death. They literally, they're the living examples of it. But for us, what we can take from this is learning to live in our code of conduct. So that is actually the opposite of being scared of death. Our code of conduct, our rahat maryada, rahat means to live, while maryada, Riyad, your remembrance that we're going to die, marnayasi. So remembering, with that remembrance that we're going to die. And Maryada actually teaches us to be dead whilst alive. And now in my job as a therapist, I support a lot of people from the Western diaspora who have lost people and are bereaved. And for them, the experience of death is very real and it's very scary because it's something they don't talk about. And they have no kind of philosophy or no understanding to kind of manage the process that grief. So we're so lucky that Maharaj has already kind of given us that understanding. At least we've got the understanding, even though we might not be, and we probably never will be at the level of Shaheed Singhs or Singhania. Okay? So Tanna Mahi Matavo, I think what really interested me was, how does your body do Simran then? How does that happen? And when I came across this neuroscience, I just couldn't believe it. Like, gosh, Maharaj is so beyond, like, we're just discovering this now through neuroscience and through, graphs or what have you. But Maharaj has already, like, thought of everything for lifetimes going forward. So this is just a bit about how our brain works so that you understand why it's so important, okay? So sometimes you might have heard the expressions that you're regulated or you're dysregulated. Does that ring a bell? Okay, dysregulation is when you're in fight, flight, freeze, you're in survival mode, you're not your best, you're just trying to get through, yeah? Regulation is when you're calm, you're grounded, you're collected. Your breathing's fine. Because in the opposite, if you're in fight, flight, freeze, your breathing is very shallow, your heart rate's very fast, you might have sweaty palms, and you're generally kind of like on edge. But on the other side, you're in rest, digest, repair. You're able to digest your food, you're able to repair your cells if you're feeling ill, and you can rest at night. You don't have any chinta or anything else stressing you out. That doesn't include camp, because camp's just different. Yeah. But so what happens is, in our brain, which is attached to our body, it will regulate everything in our body. So these last two sections, the brain stem and the diencephalon, they are the bottom part of the brain. And they're the bits that we don't have to think about consciously. So whether it's our appetite, our body will automatically know we're hungry. Whether it's our sleep, it will know we're tired. Our body temperature, our breathing, all of this is automatic, but it comes from somewhere. We get information to kind of let this part of our brain know what to do with our body. And that information comes from two places. So you've got the outside world. So you've got, when you're talking to someone, you've got the temperature, you've got the news. When you look at the news, oh my God, this is happening. Or you've got your own body. So let's say you've been hit with COVID and your body starts changing, the temperature changes. Yeah, so your body is giving information to your brain as well. What happens is every piece of information we receive first goes to that automatic part of ourselves, the brainstem and the diencephalon, and that's the bit that regulates us. It regulates our breathing, our temperature, our heart rate. And I'll give you a really easy example of this, yeah? So you see a dog coming running up to you, and you've got a fear of dogs. Straight away, because of your historic experiences, your brain and body have already recorded it, you're going to go into dysregulation. You're going to be fight, flight, or freeze. You're going to hide, you're going to run away, or you're going to batter it with your handbag, God forbid, or you're going to freeze and probably expect that it's going to bite you. It might sniff you, and you're just like, ah. Okay? But if you see that dog, and you like dogs, they're sweet. Yeah. Oh, how lovely. Yeah? Brilliant, okay. That's really helpful. So straight away, you're regulated. You're like, oh, come to me. Regulated, your temperature, everything stayed the same. You go to the next middle part of the brain, the limbic section, responsible for emotions, responsible for memory, bonding, because it's all about memory. I like dogs, I like to bond with dogs. You got good emotions, how sweet, and you're able to relate. You're relating to the dog, you're relating to the world around you, no problem. Then, and this is all one-way traffic. All of this that I'm talking about, it's one-way traffic. It can't go from different sections. Then, after that experience, that travels to your cortex, which is the very top part of your brain, which is responsible for creativity, thinking, language, values, a sense of time, and having hope. Now, our cortex is what separates us from the rest of the June, the rest of the species. That dog won't be able to reflect and think, I should do Simran because it will get me somewhere. Yeah? It will just think about food or rest or play. You know? But we've got that. Human life as a gift is invaluable. Maharaj has given us that. So if you're in dysregulation, and it's normal to get into dysregulation, that's part of our setup. Maharaj has made us in that. But the problem with dysregulation is until you feel safe, you will stay in dysregulation. Now imagine you're in Jarasi. You're seeing people shot in front of you, all these riots that are going on right now in the country. You know, people are coming running up to you, you're going to get dysregulated. If you've been practicing Simran regularly, you'll have that ability to take yourself out of dysregulation and back to regulation. All the kind of well-being doctors in this world, professionals, all push for meditation. There's different types as well, that you can do mindfulness and everything, but Naam is, we have Naam, Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Naam, and I'll illustrate later as well how it's all powerful against much more things than just regulation. You know? So if you're in dysregulation, you're in this place where you don't feel safe, there's something scary happening, and you feel helpless, you're going to stay in that place until either that thing that's scary stops, so that dog's sniffed you and gone past, you'll get back to homeostasis. You'll eventually feel like I'm safe now. Your heart rate will start coming down. Your breathing will start getting normalized again. So either, are you going to depend on something external to happen for you to start getting regulated again? Or can you do something about it? Yeah? So can you imagine those Shaheed things and stuff, why they were able to think, right, I'm going to pick up this weapon, I'm going to serve that member of Sangha. They didn't get freeze, they didn't get in that stuck mood. That didn't happen to them because they had that Simran already. They were in control of their own bodies. And this is what I want you to take forward, that in your daily lives, yes, we'll get dysregulated, but you don't have to wait for the external to get safe. You can do something about it with Guru Sahib's Naam. So the next slide, Simrao jas pisambar eka. Remember Vaheguru who pervades the whole universe. Naam japat aganat aneka. There are so many people that chant, that recite Vaheguru Ji's name, and in so many ways. So many ways. It's incredible the qudrat, the way that Maharaj has set it all up. And going back to that kind of dysregulation and regulation, why is it that there's CEOs, there's Olympic athletes, there's celebrities, there's health professionals all saying meditate? Because they all become the best versions of themselves using their cortex, their ability to reason and reflect in their line of work. But our line of work as Sikhs is to merge with Vaheguru and do Pala in this world. Ved, Puran, Simrat, Siddha, so even the Veds, the Purans, the old Granths, they all, Kine Ram Nam Ik Akhir, they all go back to the one name of Vaheguru, all of them, the greatness of it. Kinka ek jis jeev basava, taki mahma gani na aave, kankhi eka dars tuharo, nanak on sang mohe udharo. So that one person, that one individual in whose soul one Vaheguru dwells, the praises of that person cannot be recounted. Only those who yearn only for the blessing of Vaheguru's darshan, that's their whole yearning in their life. Oh Nanak, save me along with them. So they're already saved. We know that they're going to be saved because they've got it, Hannah. But Vaheguru, please save me along with them. Like you've saved them, please save me as well. So there's two photos that I've added into this slide to kind of help illustrate this point. One, can anyone name anybody in these photos?
Dalbir singers. They were mentioned this morning.
Oh, were they? I don't know.
Yeah, they were.
Oh,
Mahapurkhs singers, of course.
okay. Right, okay. Because I was going to say they're the only group that...
Yeah, they were classing in the morning. You were there. In the katha. Funny? Achha, Dasya Doi. Guru Ramdas I've been thinking, oh, Mahalla Panjwa keeps coming. And today, Guru Ramdas to go home. But they shared about Bhai Vir Singh Ji, like,
Don't go into it in case it's the same thing, because I was like, why is Kenny G doing everything there? I was like, I don't need to do this talk then. No, it's good. Don't go into it. You save that. I guess you guys probably had it as well. So the person on your left is Sant Baba Thakur Singh Ji, and they were the acting Jathadar of Damdami Taksal. They came to UK. They blessed so many of the Sangat. You heard some of the things that they did for the Panth, supporting Shaheed Singh Parwars when they had no other support. And just kind of, they were considered the mother of Taksal. So I think they were a great source of inspiration and strength for us without saying anything. They never used to talk really. They always had Gurbani recitation going on around them. And the only way I can describe it is being around them was like being in a bubble of Gurbani, because they always had somebody next to them reading Gurbani out loud all the time. And then on your right is a photo of Bhai Dalbir Singh, Shaheed Bhai Dalbir Singh Abhyasi. And I put them in particularly because of the name Abhyas. Abhyasi means somebody who is competent in the practice of Simran. They've kind of become an expert in it. And they were such an Abhyasi, but I'll go into that in a moment. But the way they started off is unbelievable. So I'm not sure if Genji's touched on this. They came into the Jatha Damdami Taksal at a point when Sant Kartar Singh Ji, who's the grandfather of Benji Satwant Kaur Ji, who was here at this camp, we're blessed to have her, when they were the Jathadar, Sant Kartar Singh Ji was the Jathadar, so you're talking about 1970s, you know? And when Sant Kartar Singh Ji found them, they were actually a drug addict. They were in a state of intoxication, knocked out in the lorry. Sant Kartar Singh Ji found them, and like saints or Gurmukhs, they're all knowing, they know people's path in life, and they come to change our direction into a better direction. They did their ishnan, so they showered them up, made them fresh. And when they came fully out of their intoxicated state, they said, "Are you done now with drugs? Have you had enough?" And Bhai Dalbir Singh Ji said, "Hanji, yes, I'm done with drugs." And they go, "Theek hai." Sant Kartar Singh Ji said, "Now we're going to give you the real drug, the asli nasha, which is the everlasting bliss of Naam." What happened then is, as they were getting to know Bhai Dalbir Singh said, because he was such a drug addict, he couldn't sleep at night, and he used to struggle sleeping at night. He goes, "I had to stay awake." And Sant Kartar Singh Ji laughed and said, "Well, this is brilliant, because this is like Jagad Avastha, that Gursikhs should be like able to stay up at night." So what they said is, "Let me give you the duty then of being the Beredar or the Raki of the Jatha." So his duty was to go around and make sure everything was safe and everyone was well, sleeping, and nobody was, disturbing them or outside influences. And also they were given the duty of waking up the Singhs at Amrit Vela for 3 a.m. So they did this duty very diligently. Now, however, as they were doing this duty, they were going around waking up Singhs. Now in Taksal, there was always a lot of Akhand Paths happening. And Akhand Path is 48 hours, obviously, recitation of Gurbani, which means that people are doing roles, so a slot of their role is usually 2 hours. They're doing that at all times of the day or night. So what would happen is Bhai Sahib will go around at 3 a.m. waking up the Singhs, making sure they're awake. But there'd be Singhs who'd be like, "Oh my God, I just came off roll and finished my nityam at 2 a.m. I've just come to rest now," or 1 a.m. or whatever it was. And they start getting frustrated. They're like, "What's this thing doing?" So they went to Sant Kartar Singh Ji, and Sant Kartar Singh Ji, in a very mitty, sweet voice, called Bhai Dalbir Singh Ji over, and they said, "We've had a complaint about you. You're waking up some Singhs who have just finished their role, and you're waking them up again." And they're not very happy about this, understandably. Bhai Sahib apologized humbly, and then Sant Kartar Singh Ji said, "Right, we're going to give you a punishment." And I say punishment in inverted commas because in Sikhi is very different. Our sochni, our mindset is very positive always, or chardigala. It's not like, "I'm going to give you a punishment, you're suffering, or you get 20 lashes, or you're going to really be shamed." And this is what I do benti of. I've made mistakes in my path of Gursikhi. I have had to go to Bhan Singh and ask for maafi for intentional or unintentional mistakes. And the way they embrace you is like no other. Yeah, there's no shame. It's always like, right, they're going to give you something that's going to improve you so much and take you to a much better place. And this is very similar to what Sant Kartar Singh Ji did. He goes, right now, because Sant Kartar Singh Ji had already given him the Santhya of Japji Sahib Path, and the correct pronunciations, and he was, at that point, he was reciting 10 Japji Sahibs a day. He said, right, we're going to give you the punishment. Your punishment is now recite 20 Japji Sahibs a day. So he said, Sat Bhajan. Now, Bhai Dalbir Singh got to such a state that he not only did 20, 30, 50, 70, 80, not even 200, not even 300, he was known to do 400 Japji Sahibs a day, which I felt was unheard of. I've heard of Singhs, met Singhs who do 100 Japji Sahibs a day. 400 Japji Sahibs a day. And he was, Singhs in that Jatha, that group, they would see him sometimes standing in water or a river for hours on end doing bhakti. And somebody's mentioning Katha, and I can't remember who, but one day that he was seen at the top level of a Gurdwara Sahib near the Gummit, so the dome. And people knew that he was doing bhakti in there because it was lit up. That's how much aura he had around him. So time passed, and don't forget, he wasn't just a sevadar doing seva of the Chatha. He wasn't just somebody reciting lots of Bani and very spiritual and progressing very spiritually, but he was also a warrior, a soldier. He was on the front line with Sant Janel Singh Ji and the Singhs. So because of that, he was involved in the action against the government, and he became a fugitive. And when he became a fugitive, he had to go and disappear from the limelight for a while, from Punjab. And he went to the jungles of Nasik. When he went to the jungles of Nasik, he changed his route from a Gursikh. And like, you know, we hear Uchta Peer when Guru Gobind Singh Ji changed to Uchta Peer in Machiwara jungle after the Sahibzade got Shaheed. Bhai Sahib changed his route into that of a Rikhi. So do you know what a Rikhi is? No, okay. So help me explain if nobody knows. So Rikhi, I would describe them somewhat, if you know what a yogi looks like. So it's a bit like a Hindu kind of person who walks on the path to do a lot of penance. So they have a specific robe that they might wear. Maybe it's like one cloth wrapping their body. They might do a lot of penance, stand on one foot, do recitation. They might just eat certain things. They might even like cut off some parts of their bodies to stop them engaging in lust. But generally they are well respected in the Hindu kind of Indian population. They've got a uniform, so you'll recognize them, that this person is somebody walking on the path of God. And they already had a prominent Rikhi in that area, and Bhai Sahib had coincidentally changed his route to that of a Rikhi as well. So he had entered that area. Now this Rikhi had a lot of Ridya Siddhya. Ridya Siddhya means a lot of spiritual powers. Those powers can include things like making your sarir, the way you look, or the way you present yourself, manifest, really tiny or really huge. That's one of the things. There's multiple other things. One of them also includes mind reading. So this Rikhi's ability, he was known for, and this is why he had such a big following. He used to sit cross-legged in a jongri position, and he used to elevate himself, his body, off the ground, and he would float in midair doing bhakti. Now, for Gursikhs, Guruji does hukam and says Rid Siddh is more, it's attachment. We don't get into that attachment. The reason why is you can fall, it's a very slippery slope, which ends up being, I am God. People are worshipping me. So what happened was, Bhai Sahib's in that area now, and generally the rural population are quite simple-minded, and they have a lot of respect for people because they think that they can grant their wishes. So some might have started approaching Bhai Sahib, might have been a first, a namaskar to them because they've got a roop of somebody who worships God. And eventually it might have been asking him questions about how pala can be done of them. And your Gursikhs have that duty to do pala of others, do good on others. So if you've got good gyan that Guruji's given you, you can share that. There might have been that Bhai Sahib shared his little resources that he had with poor people. And we can only imagine how his sangat started growing, because even in Gurbani it says that person who does so much naam jap or meditation, they can't be hidden. They already, that light ends up just coming out anyway. What happened one day is a lot of followers started going to him, and the other original Rikhi's followers started decreasing. So he got irkha, and you might have seen this in like the Char Sahibzade 2 movie as well, Madho Das Bairagi. He used his Shakti, this Rikhi was elevated, he used his Shakti to destroy Bhai Sahib. Like he wanted to destroy them completely. And as he sent that Shakti towards Bhai Sahib, because Bhai Sahib is somebody that meditates on Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Naam, the greatest Naam, the greatest gift in Kaljug, what we've gone over, Vaheguru, Sabde Vadda Satguru Nanak, Jin Kal Rakhi Meri, the greatest of the great, the Naam that Jantar, Tantar, black magic, nothing else can come close to. That backfired straight away. That Rikhi fell to the ground. He was no longer able to elevate himself, and he realized, I've made a massive mistake. So he knew that this is actually a real saint here that's come here. He took himself towards Bhai Vir Singh Ji, and he asked for maafi. He also asked, where did you get that naam from? Where's the ashram that you've come from? Who is your guru? And in the end, he became a premi, a beloved of Bhai Sahib. Yeah? Time passed, and Bhai Sahib went back to Darbar Sahib, where Sant Singh Ji was, when it was safe for him to do so. He rejoined that movement. And meanwhile, the Rikhi was feeling like, Rikhis generally, or Hindu saints as well, they will generally move around India to different places of pilgrimage. And naturally, people will come to Harmandir Sahib, all walks of life. Well, you'll remember when you've been there, if you've been there. And so he decided, I'm going to go and do darshan at Harmandir Sahib, and he went there. And then he had heard Sant Singh Ji's name, because it was prominent in those days. Everyone was talking about Sant Singh Ji. He thought, I'm going to go and do darshan of them. So he decided to make his way to Sant Singh Ji. And as he approached Sant Singh Ji, he could not believe it. On the side of Sant Singh Ji was stood as a bodyguard this great saint that nothing could touch. From the jungles of Nasik, he recognized Bhai Dalbir Singh Ji Abhyasi. And he thought, oh my God, if this great saint, this great being is doing seva as a bodyguard, then who is Sant Singh Ji that they're doing the seva of? They couldn't believe it. Bhai Dalbir Singh Abhyasi was not only an Abhyasi himself, he was the ustad, the teachers. He was the teacher of other Abhyasis who would teach them how to do Abhyas. From where he started off to humble beginnings of a drug addict to where he became. We remember him today with so much satkar, so much respect and namaskar at his janam. So sometimes we read all of this and we think, oh my God, we haven't met these people, oh my God, life hasn't happened for us in this way. We spent our lives kind of far from Naam. We've spent our lives like doing everything else, dunyavi, worldly stuff. We haven't engaged in it. So I thought I'd share this Shabad, which is really beautiful and gives us so much hope and direction. This is Deva Pahan Tariyale. So this is by Bhagat Nam Dev Ji. And they talk about how Waheguru is so inclusive for everyone. Even if you're a prostitute, even if you're considered ugly by society and nobody wants to know you, even if you're somebody who shot at the avatar of Treta, Sri Krishna Bhagwan, you shot at him, and that would be such a huge sin, Hana. Even if you're like a slave, you've come from a low lineage, even if you've got no good family like that's got respect in society, you've done no good deeds, even then, our Waheguru, our collective Waheguru has saved everyone. So I wanted to kind of share that with you, because sometimes we hear about great people, or we kind of sit with other people who've got so much gyan or so much like experience, and we think, gosh, where are we? We don't do anything. But I want to remind you that Waheguru is with you right now, and we're all in that boat together, the Sadh Sangat. So the next slide will talk about a great scholar of the Panth, Bhai Vir Singh Ji. He is a great scholar. He's written so much on explaining Sikhi in a practical way. So he was around the time of 1910. Like I said, he's a great scholar. He's explained Gurbani texts. He's also regarded as a great saint as well. So he actually lived it. He used to do a lot of meditation and Gurbani himself. And he was a really great role model in that time and still for us now. So he talks about the 3 losses which can result in a decrease in our focus on Simran. So sometimes we start doing Simran, and I've already mentioned before that, we get thoughts that kind of take us away. And that's kind of your daily battles and things like that. But there's 3 significant or distinct losses that can happen that can have an impact on us, on our journey. So these come from the book that he's written, Pyare Jio. It's in Punjabi, and it's a letter form. So actually what would happen, he was so loving to the Sangat that people, Bibiha and Singhs, would write to him, and they would say, oh, this is how my family's doing, whatever, but oh my God, this came up in my life and I started feeling really low. And he would write a letter back to them and kind of give them like solutions and also give them so much empathy and compassion. So some things can happen in our life which we can't explain, and we can put that down to our pichle janam's karam. So whatever we might have done in the past, for some reason someone's come into your life now and they've completely taken you and your focus off Simran and maybe attached you to something else. And this has happened to me. They've taken you off, where you were headed and what your path was, and that you've ended up somewhere else. And you're like, how did I end up here? And the only answer you can come up with is something to do with my pichla karam. If you find yourself on at that point, they say the ilaj or the solution, the cure is really focus on Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji at that point, and recite Naam with a more sharp determination. So try your best to go to Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji and recite Naam with a more sharp determination. Number 2, if you're giving into 5 thieves, the Panch Chor, Kaam, Lust, Krodh, Anger, Lobh, greed, Moh, attachment, and Hankar, ego, if you're giving into any of those, or you've done bad sangat, mari sangat, and sometimes we can't escape it. Sometimes it might be people at work, gossip, or maybe even family members. Sometimes they're like, why are you on the path of Sikhi, and start creating doubts in you. Or it can be even your friends, come on man, why are you going Gurdwara, come out with us. Yeah. And you notice that your focus has changed as a result. The next morning you're struggling to do Simran, maybe you haven't, you've missed it. At that time, you can do this lovely kind of tika that they've given an injection, yeah? So you can try this. Do Ishnan, so have a shower, malish your sarir, and maybe even your gaze, so massage yourself with oil, get into fresh clothes, sit in solitude by yourself and loudly recite Gurbani, so whether it's Gurmantar or Gurbani. Then after that, do ardas for a satsangi Gurmukh's darshan. And a satsangi person is that who regularly, as a name, as a routine, goes into Katha Kirtan in the satsangat, where Naam is discussed, where the true purpose of life is discussed according to Gurmat. And the Gurmukh is obviously somebody who's facing the Guru's instruction. Ask in the ardas for their darshan. And also ask for kusangita tyag, that please can you break me away from those people who are kusangat, the opposite of good sangat, bad sangat, people who take us off the path. Yeah. So that's one aspect as well. The third aspect, finally, is so interesting. It really resonated with me because of my profession. So he says, when you come across someone who has an unclean mind or is really intense with perhaps bad habits, but you're feeling some empathy towards them still, and what happens is their kind of filth or aura or energy starts rubbing off onto you. Yeah, so you might find yourself really drained emotionally, like it's like you had your cup maybe full or half full even, and then suddenly after this person's like, either, trauma dumped on you or something, and it's not their fault. It's not their fault. You've got compassion for them, but you find yourself so empty. And what do you need at that time? So they say the solution is you need boundaries for yourself. Get to know yourself. What can you handle and what can't you handle? Okay? They say take supervision from Gamai Wale Gursikhs, Gurmukhs. Supervision is like when you can bring the stuff and you can discuss it with them, and maybe they can offer gems of wisdom on how to deal with it. And they also say your heart needs to rub with those people's hearts who are more cleaner or more advanced, more experienced. So that is really, really interesting for me as well. So as my job as a therapist, and these all counselors and psychotherapists will do this, is I have 50 minutes, so that's my boundary time. So it looks after my mental health, it looks after the person in front of me, it contains them and it contains me, to listen to and be there for a client who could be discussing really like distressing themes. You can come up with a lot of stuff that is really like painful for them, and obviously you become that kind of container for them as well. Now, if they happen to touch on something that I'm really struggling with myself, let's say they've had a bereavement in their life, and I've just lost somebody recently, and it's reminded me, it's hit a nerve, it's reminded me of that. I can either get caught up in that, and I think, gosh, I can't go on to the next client now, I'm done. I can't even cook food for my kids now. I can't even think of Waheguru. It's just like, you find yourself really flat and kind of dead inside. Or what we do as counsellors, we have to take it to supervision. So I have a more experienced clinical supervisor that I bring it to, and then she'll contain me and say, what was that for you? What was that doing for you? And she'll kind of counsel, but in a professional sense, in a clinical sense, do that for me. So they just show Sikhi is always miles ahead, always miles ahead. I can't believe it. But then first what they say, and even to be a therapist, they talk about resilience, your own mental capacity. First, Bhai Vir Singh Ji says, before this, you need to be doing alongside and always, in your own time, regulating yourself through Simran. So let's say I've got somebody who's been a victim of an assault, and they're in fight, flight, freeze, and they're coming to me and it's throwing me into fight, flight, freeze. And I need to draw on that Simran again to regulate my own self and bring me back to a regulated state. So make your Simran stronger, and remember that Simran is a weapon, it's a shastar to protect people and uplift people. So it's not just there to, that sound current that travels, because we can't physically go to Waheguru, but our sound can travel us and make us merge with Waheguru. But we can, it's also a weapon to protect people and uplift people. So this was the last slide. I hope in that we've been able to kind of think about what is Simran, why we do Simran, and how it can benefit us. How can we do Simran? And then hopefully what we'll do after Q&A is practice a bit of Simran, if that's okay.